And are you refreshed?
Yes.
Good. Now what?
When I'm working with someone and I can tell that their resistance has decreased and they're ready, what would be the gentlest way to introduce them to your teachings?
Well, there's something that we want to talk about your scrutiny of them. Because if you're checking them out too closely, then you're not really doing what we want you to do relative to them. Mm-hmm. You see what we're getting at? Mm-hmm. In other words, if you will remind yourself on a really regular basis that you're intuitive, that you are standing over there in the vortex with their inner being, and that you'll know exactly what to say and how to say it and when to say it, and not try to figure it out in advance. Just go with what you feel, because you can be brilliant like us. And it doesn't mean that the person that you're talking to is ready to hear what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Their readiness really is everything. And so you're getting those cues from your inner being. Mm-hmm. So what you're really, here is one way of putting it. Law of attraction is always calling them to their vortex. Did you hear us earlier when we were talking about the difference between letting your point of attraction be from inside the vortex, where you're in concert with all that you are, or having your point of attraction be outside the vortex, where you're not allowing that full power? So when you really understand that vortex is calling them, and it is a really powerful calling, but the vortex can't buck their current, then you realize you can't buck their current either. So if you could see yourself as their inner being sees themselves, as the vortex understands itself to be, as just this constant influence toward what is wanted, without too much awareness of what's keeping them from allowing it. Because when you give your attention to what's keeping them from, then you become part of the problem and not part of the solution. Mm-hmm. So what we're getting at is, don't work too hard on trying to make them ready to hear you. Just assume, because it's always true, that they want improvement, that their vortex is calling them in a powerful way, and then you just be as much of a facilitator toward that as you can, which means when you believe in their journey, when you believe in their well-being, then you will elicit more of it from them.
It's been very fun for me as I've gone through my own journey with this and with your teachings, that I've noticed that the more that I'm in my vortex and the more that I relax with myself, my intuitive nature has come to the forefront a lot more. And I do.
And what is that intuitive nature? That's the wholeness of you. In other words, when you say my intuitive nature comes forth, what you're saying is, I'm jiving with my inner being. I have the knowledge that my inner being does. I have the timing of my inner being. I have the clarity of my inner being. I have the wisdom of my inner being. Mm-hmm. That's what intuition, that's what that intuitiveness is. Intuitiveness, let's call it intuitiveness. In tune. You've tuned in to that. The difference between you as an attractor when you're in alignment, and you as an attractor when you're not in alignment, is so big that we're not even talking about there's no value unless you're in tune with who you are. Mm. You're just the dog and pony show going through the paces, you see.
Mm-hmm. I noticed I went to the seminar that was in Los Angeles, and you spoke about general and specific, which I thought that was the first time that I had heard that, and that was brilliant to me. And it has been amazing with my patients to be able to talk to them about that. So can you maybe just clarify that just a little bit more as to when to use the general and the specific and what they want?
In the majority of cases, when you're interacting with someone who's standing in a place they don't want to be, mm-hmm. it always applies, because in the specifics of what they're living, the more they are specifically noticing what they don't want, the more they are holding themselves apart from what they do want. And so the more you can help them to diffuse the specifics into the general, the law that he's talking about, the focus wheel was a process that we were offering before to help you become less specifically resistant. But this general process is even better. So here's how it works. So when you really know what you don't want, you really know what you do want, but they are different ends of the vibrational spectrum, and you just can't jump right over there. So the more specific you are, the faster, the more you are holding yourself resistant to what you do want. And if you can let go of those specifics and get into a more general place, then as you go from specifically negative to generally negative, then it's quite easy to move from generally negative to generally positive. And then it's quite easy to move from generally positive to specifically positive. While it's impossible to move from specifically negative to specifically positive. It just doesn't work. The frequencies are too far apart. So by getting them to speak in general terms, but they want to speak in specific terms because they're manifesting specific things that they want to specifically talk about. But it holds them actively in opposition to their improvement. And it's a tricky thing because they're coming to you to help them feel better, but there's specific things that they want to address. And so you don't have to, but it would be helpful if you could let them know that you don't want to get too specific. And if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would tell them why. The more we talk about what is, the longer we stay here. Mm-hmm. And I want some information from you because it is helpful, but let's not carry it away with it. And so when I say, how are you doing? I'm asking it in a very general sense. And what I really want to hear from you is pretty darn good. Regardless, in other words, because what I want to hear from you is, and we would say this to them, I believe, these are your words, I believe that anybody can get from wherever they are to wherever they want to be if they will first make this physical journey an emotional journey. I believe that a person in pain or a person with significant diagnosis of significant disease can get from where they are, no matter where they are, to where they want to be, if they can release the hold, if they can release the resistance, which is the only thing that is keeping them from it. And I know with everything that I am that emotion is the key to that. I believe, you can say I believe or I know. I know is more powerful. I know. This is what I know. It is possible to be in disease or in pain and have a positive emotion. But it's not possible to do it all at once. And that is the first path that is necessary in every recovery. That's the first path that's necessary in every recovery. We have to have an emotional recovery first. And almost everyone is not ready for an emotional recovery because they've been trained by almost everybody else to specifically look at what the problem is. And you can't have an emotional recovery while you're specifically looking at the exact opposite of what you want, you see. So I have this game, say to them. And the game is, we're going to play the let's go general game, because it's a whole lot easier for you to generally be emotionally positive than it is for you to specifically be emotionally positive when you're standing where you're standing. So I like to play the general game. And the general game goes like this. It's getting better. I'm on the path of recovery. What isn't really very important. It's where I'm going that really matters. This too shall pass. It's going to be all right. It actually is already being all right. Things are always working out for me. Things are getting better and better. And then what they'll begin to notice as they begin adopting some of that rhetoric is that they will begin to affect manifestations so that they will be picking up along their physical trail other encouraging words that they can then more specifically integrate into this self-talk conversation, you see. Because the fact of it is, And we would present this to them in a very powerful way. You cannot be specifically aware of where you are and move to an improvement. You have to be less specifically aware of where you are to move to an improvement. But you can't just have a lobotomy, and you can't just leave your body, and you can't just walk away from what is, and you can't just leave the discomfort that you're feeling. I'm not asking you the impossible. I'm just asking you to diffuse it by being really general.
We've been playing the wouldn't it be nice if game a lot with them, and it's been amazing, the change.
Now, once you're playing that game, they're moving into more specifics, because the wouldn't it be nice if is a more specific game. And so once they're moving into that, you know that you've got some vibrational movement going on. And once you begin getting vibrational movement, you begin seeing physical improvement, because they have to follow it as law.
We did that with my mother, who just recently beat cancer because of it.
Well, that's the game. It doesn't matter. And the idea of beating cancer is different than the idea of allowing wellness. Because the beating is specific and the allowing is more general. The rhetoric doesn't matter very much. And it's a wonderful thing, but that is the process. You just got to let go. And the thing that's tricky is, in most cases, people don't know how they got there. They don't know how they got there, and so they don't know what to stop doing. And we say, it doesn't matter. Just pretend that you were dropped in from a parachute and you're in a place that you don't want to be, and never mind how you got there. Pretend that you were unconscious when you were delivered there. In other words, and don't try to figure out how you got there. Instead, accept that I am where I am for a very good reason, because generally speaking, things always work out for me. And generally speaking, I'm a really good person. And generally speaking, there's a lot of expansion that's out there for me. And generally speaking, it's going to be okay. And generally speaking, I don't have to explain anything to anybody. The only question is, do I like where I am? And if the answer is no, then I want to start thinking about being someplace else. But if I try too hard to think about being someplace else, which sort of challenges my awareness of where I am, then I'm getting too specific. So then get general. Yes.
Thank you.